super excited today to share a cool demo with all of you. But first, how many organizations out there use virtualization products? Frankly, I can't think of any clients I've worked with in recent times that don't use virtualization. And we all know one of the major market players out there is VMware. And VMware has this product called vSphere, and it's essentially a virtualization platform for the enterprise. So it contains a number of virtual machines that you can centrally manage through a web application called vCenter. So can vCenter pose a risk to your organization? Well, I think after I show you this demo today, you're going to get that answer very clearly. Now, vCenter normally is an internal application. Companies don't allow that application to be reachable from the public internet, so it's not internet facing. However, threat actors know the way they can get access to the vCenter application is first through a phishing attack. They phish Alice in accounts payable or Bob in the mailroom. They gain control of their workstation, and through their workstation, they proxy and they gain access to the vCenter application. And I'm going to show you how a bad actor could exploit that to gain access to the keys to the kingdom, namely critical servers like your domain controller. So let me show you how this works. But first, let's take a look at how many organizations out there are exposing vCenter to the world. So let me fire up Chrome. And I'm in Shodan here, so I'm just going to put in vCenter. And let's take a quick look. And we can see we got about 6,000 results. So basically, if any of these targets, if you will, are running a vulnerable version of vCenter, and of course here they're publicly exposed, well, they could definitely have a major security problem on their hands now or in the future. So let me explain the setup here. I have the Cobalt Strike framework here. It's a commercial framework that's used by security researchers, penetration testers, ethical hackers, and unfortunately, the bad actors. And what this allows us to do is install an implant on a target machine. The implant will connect back to the C2, which is command and control. It's a command and control server. And then we can interact with the target machine through this Cobalt Strike framework. So it's very popular. I like it, and it's pretty much one of the main tools that security testers use today. Over here, I have a virtual machine sitting in the Amazon cloud, and this is our attacker machine, where we're going to attack the vCenter application, and we're going to get access eventually to the domain controller of this organization. So how are we going to do this? We're going to exploit vCenter. And once we exploit vCenter, we're going to actually steal a snapshot of the domain controller. So we're not going to access the domain controller at first. We're going to steal a snapshot and then do an offline analysis to get the credentials that are currently stored in memory in a process called LSAS, which is the local security process that manages the security for the Windows operating system and actually verifies users. So actually, let me show you how this works. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fire up Chrome, and we're going to connect to the target vCenter machine. And normally what a threat actor might do is try to log in, and we'll show that this is a valid vCenter application. It's invalid credentials. So now what we want to do as the bad actor is we want to exploit vCenter so we could actually log into the application. So let me go ahead and minimize this. And we're going to go into my directory here. And I have an exploit. Let me share it with you. Actually, let me make this a little bit bigger for you. This is the exploit. Really simple. What is this exploit doing? It's actually uploading. There's a flaw that allows us to upload our own code. And what we're uploading is what we call a web shell. And this web shell is in Java. So basically, we're uploading this Java web shell. And then after we upload it, by exploiting this vulnerability, we could actually run commands on the vCenter without any authentication whatsoever. So the bad actor doesn't even need to have a username or password. They can use this vulnerability to execute commands. And what's concerning is those commands are executed by system, one of the highest privileged accounts on the Windows operating system. So let me actually show you how this works. We're going to exploit it. It's that simple. Let's go ahead and minimize this. And now what we're going to do is fire up Chrome again. And over here, I have the URL. Over here, you see this command.jsp at the end here. This is the actual web shell that we uploaded. So let's go ahead and click on it. And voila, we have this little box here. So if we type, who am I? You see we're running under system, which again is a highly privileged account, even more privileged than the administrator account. So what we're going to do now is we're going to basically paste in our payload via PowerShell. So let me copy this. And what this is going to do is once this executes on the vCenter endpoint, what that's going to do is it's going to connect back, and it's called a beacon. So it's going to, you're going to see a beacon pop up here. And what we're going to be able to do is interact with the vCenter computer or the endpoint through the beacon. So we're going to be able to, essentially take control. So let's go ahead. Let's go back. I'm going to paste this payload. I'm just going to click run because I can run any command. We'll go back over here. And in a moment, we should see a connection back, which is called a beacon. Here we go. And here it is. So it's connecting again. Remember, we ran Who Am I? And I was running a system. Well, here I'm connected back as a system user. Again, a very high privileged account. So let's go ahead and interact with the beacon. I'm going to go interactive. Now what I want to do as the bad actor is I want to get credentials so I could log into vCenter. Because once I log into vCenter, I'll have the capabilities to take a snapshot of any computer. And the server that I want to go after is the domain controller, because the domain controller has the keys to the kingdom. So if I could steal memory, essentially steal a snapshot of memory from that domain controller, I can now do an offline analysis to get the credentials. And once I have the credentials, I could log in. And you know what? There's no antivirus product or EDR, endpoint detection response product on the market that's going to detect it, because we're not actually logging into the domain controller. We're actually stealing a snapshot of it. So let's go ahead. And through the beacon, we're going to run this tool. It's called Mimikat. You could Google it later. It's very popular for security testers and bad actors alike. And what we're looking for is credentials here. And I know, oh, here we go. So the username root and the password is, guess what? Know before rocks, right? So that's the credentials that's stored in memory. Let's go ahead and give it a shot to see if we can log in. So we're going to go back to vCenter. Type in root as a user and know before rocks with an exclamation point. And let's see if we hit pay dirt. And here we are. We're now logged in to vCenter. And this company is called Evil Corp. You might have heard of it before if you watch Mr. Robot. Anyway, in their production environment, we have a database, we have a file server, and what we're going to go after the domain controller. And we're not going to connect to the domain controller and try to log in, like, for example, with those same credentials. We're going to actually steal a snapshot because I'm not sure if those credentials will actually work. So right here is we want to steal the snapshot here. So I'm just going to copy this to my clipboard. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this. We'll come back to this later. And what I'm going to do is run a tool. And what this tool does is it takes the password that I just stole, and it takes the name of the virtual machine, and it steals a snapshot. And what it does is it zips that snapshot up, it converts it to a dump file. So I could analyze this dump file using the Windows debugger and run tools like Mimikatz against it to actually get the creds that are stored in memory of the domain controller. So let's go ahead. And we're going to run a script that's going to do this all for us so it's easier. That's asking me for the password. So remember, it's no before rocks. Whoops, I typed it wrong. Let me rerun this again. There we go. No before rocks. And remember, I copied the name of the virtual machine, which is DC-Evil Corp, and now I'm going to let it run. So this is going to take a moment, and as soon as this downloads, what the script is going to do is it's going to take the snapshot and convert it to a memory dump. And then what we're going to do is analyze this memory dump offline because we're not on the vSphere infrastructure. We actually took a copy of it and we're going to analyze it and see if we can hit pay dirt and find some valuable credentials. So let's go ahead and wait for this to download. So it's almost done downloading here. And as soon as it downloads, we're going to go ahead and analyze the crash dump, and we're hopefully going to be able to get the keys to the kingdom, the credentials. So it's downloaded now. So now let's go ahead and open up the Windows debugger. But before I do that, I want to open up a little bit of a cheat sheet here because I'm going to be typing in commands. So let me go ahead and open the Windows debugger. We're going to open up the crash dump. Crash dump is over here, memory dump. And that's the dump that we actually exfiltrated from vCenter. So we're going to go ahead and open it up. And then what we're going to do is type a number of commands, and I'll explain what they are as I go through them. So the first thing I have to do is tell the debugger where the symbols are. So let me do that first. And then let's go ahead and reload. I could do that by hand. So now it's reloading the symbols. I told the debugger where the symbols were. Now let's go ahead. And I believe we're going to load the library. And this is the Mimikatz DLL. It's a library. We're going to go ahead and load that. Go back to the debugger. Oops. Great. And now we're going to track down where the LSAS process is. We want to find the address of the process using the debugger. So let's go ahead and do that. And now the address is over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell the debugger the address of the process. So right here, then let me go ahead and copy the address. And there we go. Now what I'm going to do is run the Mimikatz command, and what it's going to do is do the offline analysis to see if we can find any credentials in the memory image that we just exfiltrated from vCenter. So let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, let's see what we find here. Let me scroll up. See if we find any credentials. Oh, what do you know? We have a username administrator, and the password is evilcorp1122 bang bang at. So here we are. We hit some pay dirt here. So let's go ahead and see if we can try those credentials to see if they actually work. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the web console. Great. We're going to send it Control-Alt-Delete. And the password was evil, EVILCORP 1122 bang bang at. Let's make sure I typed it correctly. Looks correct to me. So let's see if we could log in. And voila, we're in the domain controller. And so let's go ahead and we can just go to Active Directory, well, users and computers. Here, we'll go over here. And now we have access to Active Directory to the entire domain. So again, what we did here is we actually stole a snapshot of the domain controller, did an offline analysis using the Win debugger, stole the credentials, and now we were able to log into the domain controller. So now it's game over. So what do companies need to do? They need to think about putting their vCenter application behind VPN. They need to stick it behind a VPN so it's not obviously internet facing. Also, imagine, like I mentioned before, you have a bad actor who phishes a target, gains access to that target's workstation, and then from that workstation proxies to the vCenter application. So how can we prevent that in the organization is through proper network segmentation. Again, why is Alice in accounts payable? Why is she able to actually reach vCenter? She shouldn't be able to. And finally, the most important thing you could do today is patch, patch, and patch. This vulnerability has been addressed by VMware, so it's important that you upgrade to the latest version of vCenter. So I hope you enjoyed this very cool demo today. So everyone, please stay safe. Thank you.